On January 29, 2011, a group of 4 hikers decided to climb Sgurr Choinnich Mor, a 3,500-foot mountain. What sounded like a great climb with friends soon turned into horror. An accident that would leave everyone shocked. This is the story of Adam Potter. Sgurr Choinnich Mor is no ordinary mountain. The very complex geographic landscape of this mountain shows that it's one of the most difficult to climb. It's the highest peak in the Grey Corries Range and a part of the wider Mamors Range. It's also known for its steep and rocky terrain, with very challenging ascents that require extreme scrambling and climbing skills. Hiking this mountain typically takes around 9 to 10 hours round trip, and the strenuous nature of it makes us wonder if hiking this mountain should even be legal. For these hikers, though, it was just business as usual, as they weren't new to mountain climbing. In fact, they were always looking forward to it. It was a spark in their lives they wouldn't want to trade for any other pleasures of life. This was particularly so for Adam Potter, who would go on to have an unforgettable day. A day so significant that this incident broke headlines on the internet. Adam Potter was a professional hiker. He lived for the chills and the thrills that came with mountain climbing. He had been exploring the Scottish Highlands with his girlfriend and his friends earlier in the year, and they were having the time of their lives. To tell you how deeply passionate he was about mountain climbing, he was already making plans to climb Mount Everest later that year, a mountain about 8 times as tall as Sgurr Choinnich Mor. He was a daredevil climber. However, this climb was going to be very difficult. He was about to witness a once-in-a-lifetime mountain climbing catastrophe that would alter the course of his life forever. It's the morning of January 9, 2011. The sun is shining in the high altitude, and the peak of the mountain is widely covered in snow. Exactly what Adam Potter had hoped for, as he already fantasized the possibility of hiking through a freezing climate. In preparation for the Everest hike later that year, he and his crew decided to take the challenge to climb all the Munro Mountains to have a shot at scaling Everest. For them, it was all about the experience, and the challenge on this particular outing was to climb the mountain all in one day. It took them 3 hours to reach the Scottish Highlands from Glasgow as they sped in their vehicle, leaving behind the bustling city, as the group of mountains welcomed them. What was peculiar about these mountains was the nature of their peaks, covered in ice packs and having the frosty demeanor along all the widest diameters. Cool mountains, wouldn't you say? Getting to their destination, they were welcomed by a signpost directing them through the path. The path had a beautiful rough patch of green grass on either side, and they all walked through with their full hiking kit. This kit had a rucksack full of equipment used in hiking and gear for protection. It also contained a yoga mat, warm pairs of socks, water bottles, torches, and food supplies. For these guys, the level of preparation and professionality leading up to this point was phenomenal. They had all the essentials packed for the hike. Well, anything less shouldn't be expected from a crew that aims to set foot on the top of Everest. And so it begins. Full team on full gear, ready to start climbing. Adam Potter took the lead and decided to go through the laid part to cut down the time it'd take to reach the top. This journey would take an average hiker approximately 5 hours to reach the top. They were met with a gorge and went past the area to come across a waterfall. They had no idea the waterfall was going to be that close, and this terrified them as they needed all the stability in the world to make a great hike, and also didn't want to get stuck in the area. The thought of having to camp and spend the night there in that cold had them thinking otherwise. They had to find an alternative route, and it was in the quest of looking for an alternative route that they got faced with their first threat. Should they pass through an old wire bridge that looked like it could collapse any time? Or should they take the risk of crossing the river in its smallest diameter to the other side of the mountain? They went for the latter, as the bridge had visible signs of rust. At this point, the trail was already getting steeper and narrower, but the view was also getting more and more beautiful. It was at this point of the hike that the adrenaline started kicking in. Several minutes into the hike, they decided to rest, drink water, and catch their breath. The rest was really satisfying, but what was more satisfying for them was how far they'd come. A couple minutes into the climbing, they had already successfully made it to the Munro Peak at 935 meters. Now they had to switch paths to continue the climb. The view of their destination was foggy, and the very top was faintly in sight, and this made them enthusiastically begin the next phase of the climb, a phase they would eventually regret embarking on. The hike had gotten more intense, and Adam Potter saw that the top was going to be a dangerous expedition and called for his crew to start the return journey. They had the peak in very close view and were already seeing the icy, glassy top. They thought that continuing that climb would have been pretty suicidal, as any misstep would be enough to send them rolling down the cliff. They started preparing to go down, but it was too late for Adam. He was already in the middle of the icy top, and while he tried to make the U-turn, he missed his grip and fell down. Adam Potter's screams for help echoed through the mountains. His crew was simply paralyzed and couldn't help him. He had made it to the top of Sgurr Choinnich Mor and had passed on the message for his crew to start the return journey before he missed his step. The way the mountain is built is that once you lose your balance, there would always be a foothold below to keep a stance and try to re-find balance. But Adam was already at the very top and very close to the edge before he slipped. He slipped at the steepest point of the mountain, and this made it very impossible for him to find his stance. Adam fell through a distance of 1,000 feet, and there he was living his most extreme nightmare. Immediately when this happened, his girlfriend went into panic mode and started shouting and calling for help. This got the attention of the rescue team, and they started making their way to the site of the fall in their rescue naval helicopter. The rescue team responded really fast and made their way to the site of the fall, but the weirdest thing happened. They didn't see anybody at the site the crew pointed at. The best they had hoped for was to meet a shattered still body breathing, but they saw no one. Adam was nowhere to be found. The helicopter rerouted and tried to trace the path, and they saw a man walking by the eastern side where the fall had happened. They saw this man the first time they passed, but it didn't even occur to them that it could be Adam as he was holding a map. They thought he was just a random hiker within the perimeter. They couldn't contain their utmost shock when they saw that the man was indeed Adam Potter and was already trying to make his way back to signal his crew. Except for the bruises he had all over his face and body, there were no other serious signs that this man had just fallen 1,000 feet off a cliff. The resuscitation team grabbed him from the ground and started inspecting when he complained of a sharp pain in his neck. This necessitated a fast transport to the nearby hospital available for emergency cases like this. The resuscitation team were simply in awe of wonder as they could not fathom what they had just witnessed. It was indeed a 1 in a million fall survival case. For Adam Potter to have survived falling through a bed of rocks, rolling and crashing through the ice, and lived to tell the tale, it meant a new phase of his life for him. His news pervaded the internet, and he became the subject of many news headlines. People became really curious. How did it happen? Adam had a few things to say about how it happened, but there's no refuting that the depth of this occurrence was nothing short of a miracle. The leader of the rescue team said in an interview that Adam was very lucky to be alive and that he had not seen anything like it in his several years of rescuing victims. Adam literally defeated death with a bold smile on his face. When Adam Potter was asked to explain how he survived, he was dumbfounded for a few seconds. He knew he was extremely lucky to have made it out alive, and when he eventually spoke, he gave a few details about what happened during the fall. According to him, the fall happened very fast. He could barely see what was happening. He confirmed the rucksack might have saved his life, as it was the only thing that cushioned him as he rolled multiple times through the sharp edges of the rocks. For him, the ice aggravated his issues, as every attempt he made to have a grip on the rocks proved abortive. For Adam, it was game over, as he expected to be crushed on the final impact. But to his surprise, a layer of padded ice and his rucksack made his impact smooth, and it wasn't near as fatal as what he had imagined. It was quite paradoxical that the same ice layer he claimed disrupted his grip during the rolling stage of the fall ended up being his lifesaver at impact. He was in an endless state of shock himself when he realized he survived the fall, and could only imagine what the outcome would have been if he landed on a hard rock surface. His track record as a mountain climber didn't matter at that very point of turning over at the top of the cliff. Making it through that fall meant a lot to him, as the occurrence changed the course of his life. Here's a pro tip from us to you. Never go hiking without your full kit on, as this could be the only thing that would save you if you find yourself in Adam's situation. Although, we hope you never find yourself in this situation.